So hello everyone. I wanted to show you something which I think is really excellent project. It's somewhat handmade. Well, handmade is it's not the right word because it was actually a 3D printed. It's a micro Game Boy, super micro Game Boy if I may say so, because the whole case is about 5 centimeters big and 3 centimeters wide. It has a USB-C port for charging and it looks marvelous in terms of quality. It's you really need to look hard to notice that it's a 3D printed case, and I'm obviously using high zoom because look how small this thing is. It's very small, and it has functional keyboard, and the best thing is that this is actually a fully functional thing, so it can actually play games. It can play Game Boy Classic games because obviously that was it was designed for, but I managed to find let's say a workaround to play also Game Boy Color games. Okay, so let's load the cartridge, which in fact is a 3D printed case for a micro SD, which is absolutely lovely. So let's load it here. Okay, well, I'm using I'm using sticky tape to make it fit my test bed here. Okay, let's try. Okay, this looks good. Let's turn this baby on. Excellent. Okay, so I put a few games on here. There are some limitations on the functional side, so you cannot view any subfolders. Only games visible in the root folder are going to be displayed here, so that's obviously not great for people who want to have many ROMs. And I see that there is no game sorting feature as well. You can only browse left and right, and there's no sort, nothing is, let's say, available. When I press A or B, the game is being started, so there are limited options in terms of what can be done. Yeah, but let's enough jibber jabber, and you can see that I'm actually going to be able to play this game. Yeah, and one thing worth noticing, this little guy supports fully the save games, so when a game supports save, this one will work as well. This is absolutely lovely, and the buttons feel great. They are small. I can't imagine playing this on a train ride or anything because the screen is obviously very small. But the screen has one-to-one resolution with the original Game Boy, so there is no scaling. It's actually looking just as the original screen, so with a backlight option, which is really great. Okay, let's reset the console by pressing start and select, and we're back in the main menu. So the workaround for Game Boy Color games is actually very simple. You need to rename the extension of the Game Boy Color, which a ROM file, which is GBC, to regular one, so which is GB. And obviously not all games are supported, because I'm going to show you some of the games are actually do detect that this is a Game Boy Classic, let's say, model, which in fact is an emulation running on top of a Raspberry Pi Micro, and but it's really something. Even though there is this limitation, some games do work, some have some kind of errors. Obviously, I have not tested each and every one, but this is really great that that you can play those retro games for on something which is the size of a keychain attachment. So yeah. And I must say the feeling is absolutely astonishing. There is no delay in the direction, so I'm actually having no hard times playing this game. It's not as if I try to very hard, so obviously if you want you can actually play the games on the go on this small device. Okay, let's go back to the main menu. Cool, and alright, Super Mario, Kirby Dream Land, Legend of Zelda. Now let's try something which is for, okay, for the Game Boy Color. It's Tetris Deluxe. You can see that the 5 titles, this is something which I also did for, let's say, for my own sake. I wanted to somehow mark that the titles are meant for Game Boy Color or Game Boy Classic, and obviously as you can see, the titles do not scroll and there is no way to know what kind of extension or what kind of game this actually is, whether it was original for Game Boy Color or Game Boy Classic. So I figured that I might change the file name and indicate in the beginning of the file name that this was a Game Boy Color title. So I do have a few titles here which start with GBC, Tetris Deluxe, and let's see if this one is going to work. Yes. And what's cool that it has some color palettes as well. So in order to swap the color palette, you need to press the hold the select button and use A and B to swap the color palette to something different. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I don't care about the music. Okay. Definitely not very popular Tetris release. I guess everyone preferred the original one. And even the music is terrible in this one. Although that's the music of the deluxe version. Okay, so yeah, this one does work. Okay, cool. And let's try with maybe Super Mario Land. I guess this is 3. I'm not mistaken, but maybe it's Super Mario Land. Oh yeah, and you can see this is something which I mentioned, not everything works here. Although the game is working, it's somewhat slow. There are some issues with sprites and especially the text. The whole game itself works just fine, but the sound is very slow, as you can hear. So obviously support for Game Boy Color is not as good as everyone can think, I guess. Yeah, but it's there if anyone wants to try this. Okay, cool. And this Operation Contra, let's see, this was the original Game Boy title, and I guess everyone knows this, so no need to explain what this game is. Cool. Yeah, I guess I can swap the palette here as well. Cool. And yeah, the feeling is really great, so lovely title for NES and Game Boy. That's great. Okay, let's see. Wario Land 2 for Game Boy Color. This might not work. I don't remember if I tried this before or not. Oh, it does. Cool. I guess it's working in Game Boy mode. let's, okay, I switched the palette to something which is more visible. It does seem to work without any issues. I remember that the intro for this one is pretty long, so I'm not going to play this through, definitely. Okay, cool. I can't skip this. Okay, let's reset this console then. What else is here? Legend of Zelda. I guess this is the deluxe version. And I think I have tried this one and it works without any issues. Yes, it does. Cool. So Legend of Zelda Deluxe, obviously. And as I mentioned, the save game, it does support saving games, so wow. This is honestly really a feature which I recommend using. Okay, cool. And it does work, and it's fully playable. This thing is literally so small, and if you ever played Game Boy Micro, so this one is even smaller. You can see my fingers on the console and they appear to be really big, and I have relatively normal hands. I'm an average size guy. Okay, let's try to launch Pokemon Crystal. I guess, if I'm not mistaken, this was a dedicated Game Boy Color title. So this might not be working. Yeah, and it actually frozen the console, so not everything is going to work on this little fella. Cool. Such a lovely touch, isn't it? Okay, cool. So we know that's not everything is working. This is Worms Armageddon for Game Boy Color. That was one of the latest titles released for Game Boy Color. I also don't expect this to work here. Yeah, I'll actually launch. Okay, Worms Armageddon can only be played on Game Boy Color. So obviously this console identifies itself as Game Boy Classic. There are some different firmware variants, although I have not found anyone which officially supports the Game Boy Color. This is a closed project, unfortunately. Some Chinese guy develops this, and it's really hard to find firmwares available for those. I managed to find, I guess, 5 or 6 version which I have on the card. I'm going to show you how to flash the firmware on this in some other video. It's really very simple, so you can swap the firmware to something else, which has one of the benefits, because there is one firmware version which actually does support NES games, and I'm going to show this in a second, but let me quickly jump through to some other games. So let's try with the classic one. This is obviously a game which everyone knows and loves, classic Tetris. Oh yes. Okay, cool. Now I can die. Now I can die happy. Oh, obviously. So yeah, this one is working wonderful. The controls are very responsive, I must say, for something which is almost handmade. Those are really good controls. I can feel those without any problem, and there are no dropped inputs or anything. Okay, so this one does work pretty good. Okay, let's see if we can launch something else. Super Mario Brothers, another Super Mario title. I guess this one is Super Mario Brothers 2. Super Mario Brothers Deluxe can be played only on Game Boy Color. Unfortunately, so again, no luck here. Metroid 2 Deluxe. I think this one doesn't work, although I did find an alternate ROM which did work, but I guess I had put the wrong one. Okay, what this is? I guess this is a classic Super Mario Land for Game Boy Color, so for regular Game Boy. Yeah. So yeah, this one is working perfectly fine because this is the original Game Boy title. Okay, cool. What else do we have here? Resident Evil. I don't expect this to work at all because this was one of the latest titles for Game Boy Color and I don't think it was even officially released. Let's try this. And just as expected, it did freeze the console. So let's reset this. Okay, final title for us to check is the Pokemon Yellow. I guess this is one of the loved ones for, one of the beloved one for a Game Boy Classic. Hopefully this one is working. Yes, it does. It all seems to be working. Yeah, hello Pikachu. Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to play this or anything because it actually does work. It's really great. Can I switch the palettes here? Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna pause this movie for a second from this video and I'm gonna show you, let me just quickly, I'm gonna show you I have another unit here which is a transparent one, and what I mentioned is earlier that I have a different firmware for that other unit with the support for NES, so be right back. So yeah, here's my other unit. This one is transparent and damn, it's looking good. I wish the buttons were black because the original transparent variant for Game Boy was actually black, if I remember correctly. Okay, cool, but that's not what I wanted to show you. So obviously this one has a different firmware. Yeah, this one, there is one firmware which supports NES games, and definitely not every game works, and I tested only a bunch of those, so well, let's say your mileage may vary, but let's try and play some classic ones and see if they actually do work. So let's start with everyone's favorite Super Mario Bros. Yes, and as you can see, it does seem to work fine. So unfortunately, as you can see, the sound is not perfect on this. Thankfully the sound can be, the volume can be lowered, so I guess that's not an issue. But the game is fully playable, so I don't think there are any issues which I can see. Let's reset this. Imagine seeing this console in 1990. That would be something. I guess Sega would have flipped. Okay, cool. DuckTales. One thing that I gotta mention that considering the screen size and screen resolution of the original Game Boy, the games for NES are downscaled. So obviously the fonts have some issues. Of course, not every game, but some games do have problems with readability of the font, so I guess this might limit, let's say, the support or actual usage for NES titles to the games that are readable or that you know by heart. Cool. Let's say this one is I love Mega Man 2. I guess this one was my favorite, and Mega Man 6 as well. Although I must say I love the Game Boy version even more. It's perfectly playable, although the music is not particularly good. As you can see, there are some issues with the music, but I guess it's a limitation of the emulator. Cool. What else is here? Mega Man, Legend of Zelda. Okay, cool. Let's try this one. I love this one. Yes. I can't seem to switch to... Okay, is it this one? Oh yes, and it does work fine. And the music is not even that bad. So it does work. Okay, cool. Let's see, what else I have here. This is just a short compilation of my favorite games. Prince of Persia. I wonder... Oh, this looks very nice. Yeah, it works pretty good, I'll say. Cool. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. This is I guess this is a recently released game. Of course, it's unofficial release, but let's see if this one actually does work. Oh, and obviously it doesn't. So, yeah, considering that this was released just recently, or relatively recently, I guess that's not a big surprise. And let's see if the original Contra works. Oh does work. It's slightly slower than the, let's say, Contron on the original hardware. Yeah, but it's playable. It's actually playable, so I guess if you're actually looking for Super Micro NES, this one is also, let's say, an option. Okay. Let's see if there are some other titles for me to check. Okay, what do we have here? Contra and Castlevania. Okay, let's see this one. I did test it, I think. Yeah, obviously you cannot skip the intro here. But it does work. Oh wow, it looks really good. So the screen quality, this is some kind of very small OLED screen, and it has 1.2 inch diameter, so obviously something very small, even much smaller than the original platforms, especially Game Boy. But man, look at this, such a small device and actually playable, to my biggest surprise. This is a perfect gift for someone who loves retro stuff. Okay, cool. So yeah, this is it. Hope you like this video, and of course I'm gonna put the link to where I bought this in the description, with a whole collection of the ROMs as well. This is, I must say, it's pretty nice device. It has some limitations, so be aware that it's not going to be as much plug and play as every, let's say, other console, because obviously you have to either prepare the ROMs or put the ROMs to the main directory. There are some limitations, or actually there is no sorting of the game files, so that's another limitation which has to be taken into account. And obviously not every game is going to work, although I must say that the majority of Game Boy Classic games that I have tried do work fine. And also, surprisingly, most of the games that I've tried for Nintendo NES work as well. So this is, although in this case the limitation is the screen resolution, which in some cases might not be very helpful, but it's a gimmick. So obviously, if you want to play through the whole game, be aware that this might be an issue here. But if you just want to show off in front of your friends, I guess that doesn't matter that much. Okay, I guess I'm going to end this here and see you in the next video.